I'm here on this beautiful beach west of Margate to meet up with Fergus Drennen, and I'll try and not slip on these rocks. Hi Fergus, now you're a wild food forager and long-time seaweed gatherer, stroke phycologist.
A phycologist?
Yeah.
Well, I've been picking seaweed for over 25 years now, and it's part of my broader interest in wild foods generally, so that includes land plants and fungi as well.
Yeah.
But I think seaweeds as a wild food are kind of unique in the range of textures and flavours and kind of nutrients they provide. And I think most of us as children love to be by the sea, so as adults still to be having a good reason to come down here is great.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's because I like food.
Yeah. There's a lot of seaweed on our shores, but where is the best place to collect these seaweeds?
Well, in terms of collecting seaweeds, the best place is partly also to do with the timing. So on the new moon and the full moon, to see the full range of species that are on the shore, because the seaweeds have their different niches on the beach.
Yeah.
But other than that, seaweeds generally grow attached to rock, so you want kind of a rocky substrate, and then you're going to get different seaweeds, whether you've got flint or chalk or clay or sandstone, all these kind of things. But I guess the other really important thing is the cleanliness of the beach generally and the water.
Yeah. So not near a sewage outfall.
Not near a sewage outfall, not near areas of heavy industry.
Yes.
But of course, doing this always begs the question: is how clean is clean?
Yes.
Clean enough, you know.
Yeah.
And I would always want the water to be cleaner than it actually is.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time, unless you are harvesting spots that are, almost pristine, if it makes sense to say that these days.
Yeah.
It's a case of going to the cleanest beach possible, and perhaps, not overloading on seaweed, but eating a little now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you run into problems if you're on a beach that isn't ideally clean and you're repeatedly eating the seaweed, which may have bioaccumulated heavy metals and things, and that will slowly accumulate in the body. But there are safe ways of doing this and avoiding that.
But I mean, you actually collect it to actually cook and show how to cook it as well. Do you run courses?
I run courses, I do, but my main interest is just to be on the beach and getting food so I can feed myself and family and friends, and just I think the unique thing, because in this country, in the UK, we don't have a huge tradition of eating seaweed like there is in Japan, so it doesn't come that culinary baggage of what you should do. So if you're someone like me that's highly experimental, enjoys being experimental in the kitchen, seaweeds are a great ingredient to work with. Quite a lovely selection of laver seaweed here, a Porphyra genus, which is about 5. They can actually be quite hard to tell apart without a microscope, but for the purpose of eating them, the ones that we see on these shores, probably Porphyra umbilicalis, possibly purpurea. But what I want to do with them is use them as a wrap for a bit of sea bass, and also I'm going to attempt to make my own nori sheet.
Right.
The sheets that the Japanese use to make sushi.
This is the seaweed that they use?
It's the same genus, Porphyra.
Okay.
Yeah, so very similar to one that they actually cultivate.
Yeah, okay.
So it's in a lovely wet condition, even though it's very sunny, because we're picking it on an outgoing tide.
Yes.
And sometimes if it's really sunny and the tide's coming in, it's had all this time to dry out, and you try and pick it and it just breaks into little fragments. In Great Britain, there's about 35 species of seaweed that have historically been used. But of all the species, if I was to select one in terms of its sheer versatility of use for cooking, it would be laver, because just boiling it up, the flavour that comes out makes a superb stock for stews, whether they be vegetable-based stews or meat-based stews. But you can also use it to wrap things, such as fish, or flake it and use it as a seasoning. Or, of course, do as the Welsh do, which is cook it for a very long time until it kind of goes to almost a pulp, and then they call it laver bread or lava bread, and they kind of spread that on toast, maybe with some eggs or bacon for breakfast, which is a lovely thing to do as well. So on a suitable beach on a low tide, you can get, which is probably the most delicious of all seaweeds, I think, which is dulse, Palmaria palmata. And you know, some people think sheep are a bit stupid, but I think in terms of having an educated palate, they know a good thing, because the sheep of Ronasay, the Scottish island, absolutely love this seaweed. And deep fried, this is a little bit special. So I'm going to get some of this.
How many different types of dulse are there in the UK?
How many different types of dulse? As far as I know, there's just one type of dulse in this country.
Dulse is the common name.
Yeah, dulse is a common name. In Ireland, I think it's called dillisk. You know, there's regional names for all these seaweeds, but the botanical name is Palmaria palmata.
When you're cutting the seaweed, is that the end of the plant, or does it go back?
Yeah, so what I'm doing, I'm not cutting off the whole thing, but I will just pull this one bit off just to show you in terms of the best way to harvest it. So you have this bit here, which in the middle, where all the longer fronds will start growing in kind of early April, and then this bit in the middle, it will overwinter, and then the new fronds will come again in the spring. So if you just leave it attached to the rock and just harvest the big fronds that are coming off it and leave this central bit, I think it will grow back from that. So in rock pools right at the low tide zone and just below the low tide, which will be exposed in about 10 minutes, you can find kelp species. This one's Laminaria digitata. And like many species of seaweeds, it's so many things that you can do in terms of using it as food. But what I love to do is two things. One is to cook it in maple syrup and dry it, in a sense candy it. And the other is to cook it in soya sauce and dry it till it's crispy. Absolutely delicious. But I think some of these kelps, they're just so beautiful, just in terms of the colours and the textures. And just looking at them and kind of thinking of all the creative possibilities for cooking with them. So the laver I've harvested is kind of traps quite a lot of sand in it, so I'm going to give it a bit of a wash in the sea, just so when I cook it, it's got its natural salt water, which is something that goes a long way to giving it the great flavour that it has. And I'm going to try and wash it without disturbing too much of the sand, just by floating it around a little bit, let the sand drop out of it. It's a bit like washing some laundry. Do this 2 or 3 times. And hopefully, if such a thing would be possible, we would have sand-free laver.
Yeah. No, that was a really good couple of hours there, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is what I'm getting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is carrageen.
Carrageen, that's the Irish moss, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, another one of Margaret's stories is about the poor. She was very passionate about feeding the poor and said that a small portion of meat accompanied by a good quantity of carrageen moss, well boiled, would furnish a wholesome meal for many a poor family.
Absolutely, and carrageen is, it's traditionally used as a convalescent food just because it is so full of essential nutrients.
Right, so we're going to leave this beautiful beach and move along the coast to a pebbly beach to cook the seaweeds and the sea bass.
So, got our lovely sheets of laver, and I'm trying to find these bits that are just the perfect size really, either as single sheets or a couple put together that can wrap these bits of sea bass.
Do you put any oil on the fish itself? Or?
No, I'm not going to oil the fish, but what I have done is I picked a little bit of this wild fennel. So in one of them I'm putting a little bit of a tender young fennel leaf, and the other one, just because it's not just the leaves you can use the flowers. So I'm going to put some flowers in the others because they really pack a lot of flavour. Like that. And then I'm going to wrap it all up in a little parcel. That's two. And then when that fire's gone down, all the flames have gone and it's just embers, we're going to put the sea bass on there and cover it over with shingle. But while we've still got some flames, I'm going to heat a wok of hot oil, which is a pretty crazy thing to do on a beach, but we're going to deep fry some seaweed because it's delicious. And try and do it in a balance between doing it in a fun and crazy way and a safe way. It's hard to find that balance sometimes, but what I can guarantee is it's going to taste delicious. So we're going to cook some sea bass in a minute, but as a wonderful starter, we're going to deep fry the red seaweed, the dulse. And this is definitely one of those things you don't want to do at home in the kitchen because it can be very messy and the hot oil splashing around everywhere. But if you do it at home, you can just brush it with oil and dry it in a low oven, and it's kind of almost as good. So I'm going to deep fry it probably for about 15 seconds or more. So 3, 2, 1. And what you might not see is, although it's a red seaweed, once it hits the hot oil and cooks for a few seconds, it turns a lovely green colour. And that's when you want to take it out and just put it on some absorbent paper to get rid of the excess oil. And I can't think of any more delicious way of actually eating dulse.
It's almost like it's like parsnips, isn't it? It's like a sort of like parsnipy, the parsnip chips. Well, I think that's okay.
You think it's okay?
Yeah.
That's pretty good actually, isn't it?
Yeah. Come around here. Right, lovely.
Is that filming?
Yep.
Well, I've got a knife and fork, to be honest.
Right.
Wild food, I think, requires wild eating, so I'm just going to use my hands.
So the green bits are?
The green bits is wild spinach or seaweed.
Right.
And ribwort plantain.
Right.
It's a really underrated plant, but it's really good when it's cooked well. And then the nice thing about cooking sea bass wrapped in seaweed is that even if you slightly overcook it and it gets a bit soft, it's still contained within the parcel. So, but if I do so myself, I think it's perfect.
No, having that sort of it's almost like a pastry, but it's a vegetable wrap in it, really. Yeah. You say the fish is nice and moist inside. Yeah.
And you can taste the fennel in a subtle way, but in a good way.
use fennel seeds quite a lot, but I never use the actual plant.